The NBA trade deadline is just 2 days away, so we break down the latest intel on Giannis Antetokounmpo and possible concerns about joining the Golden State Warriors. And Wes, does the front office owe it to the coaches, players, and the fans to get this done?
Coaches, players, fans. David, what about us? They owe it to us to get it done. We're podcasting about this team 5 days a week. Get it done.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks for making us your first listen every day. Join the Cookie Gang. Become an everydayer. That means subscribing, tuning in every day, Monday through Friday, and signing up to the Everydayer Club with the link in the show notes. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real GM Radio. I'm here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. Jam-packed show for you today. We've got all the latest stuff on Giannis Antetokounmpo, the latest trade intel, including whether or not he actually wants to play for the Warriors at all and what that could mean for the Miami Heat. But let's just start with the details here, because we do have more details on what the Heat are at least prepared to offer the Bucks in a Giannis package. This is from Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, who reports that the Heat's offer is expected to include Kel'el, Tyler Herro, Terry Rozier's expiring contract, another young player or more, and that's Barry's language there, as well as first-round picks in 2030 and 2032, the two first-round picks that we've talked about that the Heat have available to trade, and then possibly some first-round pick swaps in 2026, 2029, and 2031. The swaps are going to be part of any package that Miami can offer, that Golden State can offer. I don't care about the swaps. I don't think the Bucks really care about the swaps. I only think that the swaps are about the press for the press relief. So we could just whatever. Who cares about the swaps? But in general, David, that backs up what we've been talking about a lot in terms of what we expect the Heat's offer to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a combination of different things. Not only is it Rozier's contract that gives them the salary cap flexibility that they're looking for, it gives them some young players to continue to add, Tyler, Kel'el, whomever else they might be able to poach from Miami. So it's a combination of different things. And of course, there's also the draft capital, which is essential for any kind of significant trade for a superstar. So it hits every possible target that Golden State is looking for in any kind of return package for Giannis. So I'm sorry. Yeah, Milwaukee. And eclipses, I think, what other teams are able to offer, because other teams might have more draft capital. Other players might have another superstar-sized contract that they could include in the deal. But I think that combination of different things is really what makes Miami's offer stands out. Not necessarily makes it better, perhaps, but I think it's what makes it different in comparison to the other deals. And I think a lot of people are starting to come around to this idea that Miami has acquired a number of young players that can be useful in Milwaukee's bid to start rebuilding what they're able to put out on the floor to reconstruct their roster in such a way that does not include Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, and look, you've got Sam Amick reporting recently also that Giannis looks at Miami as a team that potentially makes a lot of sense for him, right? We know that Giannis was interested in the New York Knicks over the summer. At the very least, that was an option that Giannis reportedly explored and his people reportedly explored. I do think that based on some of the reporting that's been out there, that Giannis prefers to stay in the Eastern Conference. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the potential packages that teams can offer in the East, I mean, the Knicks, it sounds like, are not interested in making a big move right now, which makes a lot of sense just based on where they are in the salary cap. But, you know, the Heat are obviously very motivated to try to get a Giannis deal done. I don't know another team in the Eastern Conference that does. Like, look, somebody can come out of nowhere, of course, right? Like Cleveland is making, like, they made that big DeAndre Hunter trade over the weekend. And as Matt Moore pointed out to me on Locked On NBA Daily, like, they are a lot closer now to dodging the tax than they were before, and they're lowering their tax bill right now. Like, if they're able to dodge the apron here, are they a team that could potentially swoop in the way that they swooped in for Donovan Mitchell? You know, and maybe offer somebody like Evan Mobley even. Like, that to me would be interesting. Mm-hmm. But outside of a dark horse team kind of swooping in here, I agree with you, David. I look at this Heat offer and I say, this comes the closest to checking all the boxes. And what Bucks fans will say and have been saying is, this is Giannis. We should be getting everything. Like, Mikal Bridges went for 5 first-round picks. Giannis should be going for twice that, right? Like we shouldn't have to compromise. We should get the young blue chip player and all the draft picks, right? Like Miami, go out and get more picks. We want the Golden State treasure trove of picks, and we want the Miami treasure trove of good young players. Why can't we have both? And my answer to that is because Giannis wants to trade. And very rarely in these superstar trades do these teams get requisite value for what these superstar players are, right? Like we just don't. I'm trying to think, David, like go back and like these recent superstar trades. When did a team ever like get like premium value? Like at the end of the day, when the superstar demands a trade or does whatever Giannis did, which is not demand a trade, but basically demand the trade, like you lose leverage if you're the team that's trading them. And you could look at the Milwaukee Bucks and say that they're trying to drum up leverage by saying, well, we don't have to trade them by the deadline, which is true, they don't, and they do have a certain amount of leverage in this. But I still just don't see in recent superstar trade history when those teams get everything that they want.
Yeah, I think the difference is those most of the time. I'm trying to think of recent superstar trades. I think the Luka deal was such an aberration, so it's kind of hard to use any of that as an example.
I mean, Durant, right? I think you think about Durant to Houston is less so, but what about like Durant to Phoenix, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, 4 first-round picks? That was a good return, but you didn't really get the blue chip young player in that unless you think Mikal Bridges was that. Maybe Bridges was viewed like that back then.
Yeah, I think he was a promising young player. I don't know that necessarily an established one. So I don't even know that you would see the potential there the same way that you do for some of the other players on Miami's roster. So and I know this kind of feels eerily similar. I can imagine the more critical members of our audience kind of saying, "Oh, well, you talked to Miami's offer for Dame Lillard too." And I know even as I'm saying this, I know that there are similarities in my sense that look, we did both believe that eventually Portland was going to trade Dame Lillard to Miami, and then it just kind of fell out from under both of us, and we did not see that coming. We didn't see the deal with Milwaukee coming necessarily, and so I can understand that there's always that possibility of another team, as you said, swooping in there and offering something different that is just a better deal for what Milwaukee might want. That makes sense. And yet I really do think compared to what we know, at least, and the teams that are potentially putting offers together, it seems like Miami does check all those boxes, does have a lot of to offer, both in terms of draft capital, salary cap flexibility with Rozier's deal, and then the young players that might make this happen. So, look, it's tough. It's really difficult to kind of just use these past examples because they almost all have some sort of not necessarily criteria, but something that made each deal unique. Durant was a different type of player. Jimmy Butler, I mean, that's a superstar deal. And Miami certainly didn't get what they were looking for in that deal. They got the best possible deal in terms of getting Davion Mitchell and getting Andrew Wiggins. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't exactly the deal that they were looking for, but they had to make it happen because they had to get Jimmy off their roster. And I think you're looking at something similar here, where from Milwaukee's perspective, they'd rather deal with it sooner rather than later. And I think that's the case for Giannis as well. Like he does not want to play there in Milwaukee anymore. At least that's what my feeling is with all the reporting. It seems like his days with the Bucks are over. And that being the case, Milwaukee really doesn't have much choice. They don't have the leverage that they would prefer.
Giannis being on the Bucks. Like, do you think a Giannis trade happens before the deadline or in the offseason at this point? You think it happens before the deadline?
I've been pretty consistent in thinking it's going to happen before the deadline. Like, we've heard a lot of scuttle that even over the last couple of weeks that the injury just kind of fast tracked things a little bit. It's like, you know what, I'm hurt. Now's as good a time as any to try and do your due diligence and see what you can get done because I don't want to come back to this team.
Yeah, now it sounds like based on some of this reporting late on Monday night, he's threatening to maybe come back from the calf injury. He's using like a return to derail Milwaukee's tank chances. He clearly wants to get moved here. And there's some contract stuff that has to do with that too. But I also think, look, once you've decided that you want to leave, it's hard to stay, right? I understand everybody that says, look, I think it makes more sense for the Milwaukee Bucks to wait until the offseason when some of these offers could be a little bit better and teams like Miami would have more draft picks to move in a trade. And I get that, right? From an Excel spreadsheet, like kind of sense of thinking about things, but that removes the human element part of this. And when everybody's basically decided that they've come to the end of the road, I do think that with the human element part of this, everybody's motivated to kind of just get on with it. And I'm with you. I think a trade gets done, and that's not based on reporting necessarily. It is kind of a little bit of my feel on some of the
Yeah.
based on some of the reporting I've done, if that makes
Yeah.
sense, and kind of reading in between the tea leaves. But I still think I tend to think something. I thought something was going to get done with Jimmy Butler last year, and there was a lot of people out there that said no, the Heat aren't going to be able to find a trade for Jimmy. And I was like, where there's a will, there's a way. A lot of times with this stuff, and I do think ultimately the Milwaukee Bucks are going to settle on a package, whether or not it's from the Miami Heat or another team. I do want to get to this report though about Giannis maybe not being thrilled with the idea of teaming up with Steph Curry in Golden State. Obviously, that could be good news for the Heat. We'll talk about that next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game that everyone has been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, you can bet just $5 and you get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count because after the Super Bowl, the season's over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today's episode is also brought to you by Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, well, Indeed Sponsored Jobs is the move because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, particular certifications, or maybe even location. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone who can help. I plug somebody in there and just see if they might be able to do the job as well as the next candidate. I don't want to settle. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. And that's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you need. It saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through all the mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit. And there's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. We'll be right back.
As you might have heard us mention on the show, we recently launched a new subscription program called the Everydayer Club that includes ad-free shows and access to a group chat for Heat fans on Discord. Well, this week we launched an all-new, all-access tier as part of that program that includes even more. If you sign up, you're going to get the perks that I just mentioned, plus the ability to text me and David directly, submit questions for post-game shows, and subscriber-exclusive episodes of Locked On Heat. The daily show's not going anywhere. It's always going to be free, and I can't thank you guys enough for being listeners and supporting that what we do here every day. But if you're looking for another way to support us, we'd love for you to check this out. If you're interested in joining the Everydayer Club, tap the link in the show notes or head to lockedonheat.supercast.com to learn more. And if you sign up by the trade deadline, February 5th, you can use the code DEADLINE to get your first month for free. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more. David, another team believed to be a leading contender to trade for Giannis is the Golden State Warriors. But according to Jake Fisher late Monday night, while Giannis does respect and has an affinity for Steph Curry, people around the league are wondering if he's actually wanting to team up with him. Here's the full quote from Jake Fisher's piece on Substack. Quote, league sources say that Golden State is aware of recent rumblings that Antetokounmpo can't be assumed to be as eager as he was once perceived to be to relocate to Stephen Curry's town and team. How credible are such rumblings? Presumably, only Giannis knows for sure. Yet I have heard from sources briefed on the situation that some in the know suspect Antetokounmpo could be turned off by the idea of joining an older team and or facing the sort of criticism that Kevin Durant continues to absorb to this day about teaming up with Curry, end quote. David, that's an interesting wrinkle. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think we're getting into, as we're reading all these different rumors and reports and things of that sort, there's the factual side of things, or at least the more accurate reporting where you're hearing, okay, this is what X team is willing to put into a potential deal. But there's also, as you said earlier in the first segment, the human element to all this. And I think that's where we're kind of overlooking that by and large, because we're a transactional fan base. Like, this is the way it's become now in the year 2026, after several years of hearing Adrian Wojnarowski drop Woj bombs and Shams Charania, and we're looking at the next deal and what that entails. But there's always something more to it than that. Like, even this past summer, again, to hearken to Dame Lillard, like his idea, his choice to join the Portland Trailblazers, that's him wanting to reconnect with a team that he built something, that he established something. And for Giannis, he's been the centerpiece of this team for such a long time. To go and join Golden State is to take a step back in that regard, because you're never going to be able to eclipse what Steph Curry means to the Warriors fan base. You know this as well as anybody, having covered the team for a couple of years. That is Steph's team through and through. Steph's imprint is everywhere in that organization. It's his team. And so for Giannis to join that group is trying to fit into what Steph has created there, that culture. Whereas if you join a team like Miami, that culture is not based on any one player. This wasn't LeBron's team, as good a player as LeBron James was during the 4 years he was here. This wasn't even Dwayne's team.
No, it was Mario Chalmers'
16
team.
years that he plays it. Yes. It doesn't belong to any one player. And that's what makes Miami different. And I think similar to San Antonio in that sense. Like, as for all that, Tim Duncan was able to accomplish, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, it wasn't any one player. This was the organization and your ability to fit into it. And so I think Giannis would be clearly the best player on this roster. He'll have the attention. He'll be the focus of the media, and that's fine. But this is about joining the Heat and being a part of this culture and learning how to continue to evolve and grow and win as part of the Miami Heat, not about joining Steph's team in Golden State.
To me, this report underscores two things to me. It underscores, one, Giannis's ultimate power in this situation, right? This is where it's different than the Damian Lillard thing. Dame was under contract for several more years. Giannis has power in this because he has leverage, because he has the ability to say yes or no to an extension in October. This underscores that to me. We could talk all we want about who's got the best package here, the best package there, right, East, West, whatever. If Giannis wants to play for you, you've got a shot. If Giannis doesn't want to play for you, you don't have a chance, probably. You probably don't have a chance. It also underscores the second thing. You can't have it both ways, Warriors fans. And you can't have it both ways, Warriors. The Warriors, there's this idea, right, that these out picks for the Warriors are so much more valuable than anything that the Miami Heat can offer. Okay, cool. Why would Giannis want that or care about that? If the idea is that the Warriors, on one hand, give Giannis the best chance to win going forward, but on the other hand, you're also telling me that those out-year picks could be really valuable because Steph Curry is going to be in his 40s and the Warriors won't be as good anymore.
Right.
Which one is it? Right? Does Giannis want to end up asking for another trade in a few more years away from the Golden State Warriors in this situation? No. Giannis doesn't want to do this again. Look how hard it was to do it this time. And when we talk about the Kevin Durant part of this, right? The other part of this is that ever since Kevin Durant went to the Golden State Warriors, and as much success as he has had there, he's been searching for a home ever since he left Oklahoma City. And as much as this reporting indicates that maybe Giannis doesn't want to face that same criticism that Durant faced when he joined Golden State, I think Giannis is even more afraid of what happened after that to Kevin Durant, where he bounced around from team to team. Giannis doesn't want to do that. Giannis is looking for his next team to be his last team. Giannis is looking for his forever team. He thought the Milwaukee Bucks were going to be his forever team. That is no longer the case. I think he's looking for this next team to be his forever team. And I think it's why you're starting to hear things, too, about the market matters for him. It's why New York was interesting to him. This is somebody who is very much involved in his businesses off the court. He wants a higher profile. He wants all of these things. He wants as many of these boxes checked as possible. He wants a forever team. And to your point, David, the Miami Heat are that kind of team that can offer that forever team ability. Look at the track record of this organization maximizing superstars over and over and over again and giving them a chance consistently to compete for championships. Let's go back to Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway. No, they never won a finals, but they were contending pretty much every year. They were up there, right? And if not for Michael Jordan, who knows what happens, right? With some of these teams and the Knicks. But you look at Dwayne Wade. Within a year of him entering the league, they're like, this guy's got it. Let's go get Shaq. And then they maximized Shaq, and they were able to get Shaq another ring after his Lakers tenure. And you look at, obviously, LeBron James and what he was able to do win his first championship with the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler didn't win a championship, but he was in the finals twice. He had a chance. And I think Giannis, look, there's not going to be a trade out there that if Giannis says, if I go there, I'm going to win a championship, right? Obviously, that trade doesn't exist. There's no way of knowing. But the only thing Giannis can know for sure is, what team can I go to that I feel is going to consistently give me the best chance to compete for championships? And the Heat have as good of a track record as anybody in the league in giving their superstar players a chance to play in an NBA Finals. And ultimately, that's what Giannis is looking for. So, again, I look at this Warriors thing and I say, you can't have it both ways. You can't tell me on one side that, hey, these out picks are going to be super valuable. Milwaukee's going to want these. We're going to stink in a bunch of years. But also, Giannis, come to Golden State because we give you your best chance to compete for the rest of your career. You can't have it both ways, Warriors.
I'm looking around, and we're recording this on Monday night, but by the time this is public, it'll be on Tuesday, the night where Miami will be celebrating their 2006 championship. And then I saw just recently how the Philadelphia 76ers they just welcomed their 2001 Eastern Conference champion team with Allen Iverson, et cetera. The whole team that was there, Eric Snow, that whole group. And I just think of what Miami has been able to create in terms of if not necessarily a family environment, as close as you're going to get within the profession of basketball, which is to recreate that whole idea that when you're a part of this organization, you're a part for life. Whether it's Shane Battier joining the front office, Alonzo Mourning, the jerseys hanging in the rafters, the coaching staff, which is made up of all former Heat players, like that matters. Even for a guy like Jimmy, like hearing him talk about how Dwayne was treated when he was coming back to Miami, and to see the farewell tour, although he apparently it didn't matter that much to him and he still wanted to leave anyway. I think that's something that no other organization can really deliver. Miami is very much unique in that sense that they've got an established culture, they've won a lot, and it's all about bringing back their former players and making them feel like they're a part of this organization forever. And I think that's something that really does appeal to Giannis. Like, to back up what you're saying, he's looking for his next chapter to be his last chapter. And I think you get that chance better in Miami. Like, ultimately, it may not matter. We might be reading more into it. But I think that based on what Giannis and the way he talked about the Bucks organization during the early years and all the struggle to just get to the championship and to be able to continue to build on that, I think he's looking for a team that has the proven track record on so many different ways of making this a stable organization, of keeping that family attitude throughout everything, of constantly competing or at least building the best team possible. And I think that really matters to a guy like Giannis, who I think is taking all these different factors into consideration, the off the court stuff, the internal stuff, and his ability to actually win on the court.
I want to flip this around in our next segment because there's a lot of debate about whether or not the Heat should even go all in for somebody like Giannis, who's 31 years old. Let me ask you a question, though, David. Do the Heat owe it to Bam to make a Giannis trade happen? We'll talk about that next.
Today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life, and this year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever just to hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you just meet with a local TurboTax expert in person, or you can even connect online, and they handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms, and they work to get you every possible deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and just get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver, and it gives real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it all. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, you just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. We'll be right back.
So there's a debate about whether or not the Heat should go all in and trade for Giannis. Should they trade a big chunk of this young core that they've built up over the last few years for a 31-year-old Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is as talented as he is, coming off of 5 calf injuries over the last 15 months and things like that. And we do get a lot of questions, David, on this show about whether or not the Heat should be willing to include Jaime or Pelle Larson or Kaspersky Akachonis, Kel'el Ware, etc. in a Giannis deal. And so, we've gotten so many of these questions. It got me thinking, we can have this discussion about the young players and all this stuff. Do the Heat just owe it to Bam Adebayo and Erik Spoelstra to go all in for Giannis at this point? Not even the fan. Do they owe it to the fan base? Do they owe it to us? Do they owe it to all this? All that, I get it, right? And the idea with Giannis is that this is the guy they've been holding out the assets for. This is why you don't go all in for Damian Lillard or all in for Kevin Durant over the last few years, because you were waiting for Giannis, and now Giannis is available. And now there's a question of, well, Jaime and Kel'el and Pelle and all these guys look so good. Can you sacrifice your whole future to go get Giannis now? And I do wonder, going back to the human element part of this, David, did he just owe it to Bam Adebayo and Erik Spoelstra to ignore those questions and say, nope, Bam's 28, Spo is our coach. We haven't had a number one option like Giannis since LeBron James left in 2014. We got to go get that guy. Do they owe it to those two guys who have put in the work, who have put in the time? Do they owe it to those two guys for Bam to get a teammate like that and for Spoelstra to be able to coach a player like Giannis?
I have a hard time with the whole owing it to them because I think that implies, one, that the individuals are greater than the franchise, or that the front office hasn't done what they can to build a contending team, or at least made attempts to add the right combination of players to this roster. So when you ask the question, my first instinct is to say, no, they don't owe it to those players. Now, I will recognize that if given an opportunity, he coached the best player of all time. He coached the best player in franchise history. He coached a Hall of Famer in Chris Bosh and other Hall of Famers in Ray Allen, et cetera. So they've done everything they can already for Spo. I don't think they owe him anything. They paid him well. He's been a part of this organization. He has a lot of a strong voice within the organization in terms of personnel decisions and everything else like that. They've made him as bright a part of this organization as you can possibly make any one player or any one person. So I don't think they owe him anything, and I don't think they owe Bam anything either. Like, Bam has been with the team for a number of years, and I get that, but they don't owe a player that, because as much as Bam has contributed to winning and done all the yeoman's work and done everything they can to represent this organization as well as you possibly could hope for, he is not a superstar in that sense, and he has not been the kind of guy that they feel like they've let down. Like, if anything, they might have felt that way towards Jimmy, and you saw how that played out. But I will say, though, that they probably want to make every move possible to build the best team possible, because there could be some future down the road somewhere where Bam says, I don't want to be in Miami. I don't know that anybody ever really realistically saw Giannis wanting to leave Milwaukee, and yet here we are. So I think there's always that potential of wanting to do what they can to win and to placate Bam as part of this team, currently part of this team. But I think the two kind of go in hand, which is the organization, the front office's goal is always to win as much as possible. And if that keeps Bam happy, so be it. If that keeps Spo happy, so be it. But we're building this team, the front office, because they want to win. And getting a superstar like Giannis puts you in the best position to win. So no, I don't see owing it to any one player or coach as a factor in this.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the obvious part of the job of the front office is to make the team better, right? And getting Giannis presumably makes your team a step closer to winning a championship.
I'd say so.
Even if sacrificing some of these young players might hurt. And even in today's, and I hear the basketball arguments, and there's solid basketball arguments, like in today's CBA, you want the young players on rookie scale contracts. I get all of that. But eventually the guys on the rookie scale contracts got to get paid, right? Eventually, you got to give Nikola Jovic a contract, right? And Jaime Jaquez Jr. is up for a contract extension this summer. It's the one we never talk about. We always talk about Tyler Herro, Norm Powell. We never talk about Jaime. Because Jaime, first of all, is going to get whatever contract he gets, he's going to deserve it based on the season he's having right now. Kel'el Ware, he's a far away from getting paid, but he's gonna have to get paid at some point. And so it's all fun and games while you have all these guys making, between $4 and $8 million a year on their rookie scale contracts. But eventually you're gonna have to pay these guys. And eventually we see what we've seen time and time again. Your favorite young player, Tyler Herro, gets a new contract, expectations change, fan base turns, changes how they feel about it, over and over and over again. And I can only do this hamster wheel for so long. Do the Heat owe it to Bam? I don't know. I think you raise a great point in the sense of we know what Bam is as a basketball player, and if just from a basketball sense, you owe it to basketball and to your team and to your organization to get Bam a true number one, so that we can maximize what Bam can be as a awesome number two, whatever that, like supporting a Robin to a Batman. That's Bam's ultimate job. And he could be one of the best at whatever that is in the league, but he needs a true number one option. So you owe it to Bam in a basketball sense to go get him a real number one, and a real number one who, by the way, is a real number one regular season and playoffs included. But I do kind of think you owe it to Spo. And I know that's what the money is for, and I know all that stuff, and you got him LeBron and early in his career and stuff. But don't you want to see what Erik Spoelstra, like we have seen the magic that Erik Spoelstra can create with Dion Waiters and James Johnson, like on those rosters, right? We have seen what he's been able to do with undrafted players and all this thing. Imagine giving him his best player, his most talented player he's ever had since LeBron left in 2014, just to see what Erik Spoelstra has learned and how he can develop that. Like, I want to see that. I want to see Erik Spoelstra with that kind of talent, because frankly, we've never seen this version of Erik Spoelstra with that kind of talent. The version of Spo with LeBron James was a very different Erik Spoelstra, right? I mean, that was a long time ago. He is at the peak of his powers right now. I want to see Spo with that kind of player, and I want to see what he can do, right? So maybe it's unfair to say, do they owe it to him or not? Because again, to quote Don Draper here, that's what the money is for. Just go out and do your job. That's why you get paid millions and millions and millions of dollars. But from a basketball sense, I do think that they owe it to Bam to pair him with a number one in order to maximize, and so that we could see what Bam can do in that supporting role. And then for Spo, I want to see what he can do with a number one option like Giannis, something that this version of Spo has never had.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, that makes sense. I hear what you're saying, and I still have a hard time with it, but I get the overall premise that, you know what, this coach has been able to do a lot with a little, and has taken some pretty bad rosters and been able to carve them into something close to a winning team. So in order to put him in the best position to succeed too, you want to get him the best players available. So I think it all goes hand in hand. So I don't know. Maybe it's the minutia I'm getting hung up on here, but I don't think they owe it necessarily to somebody. But I think also their goals are pretty consistent for all three. Like Bam wants to win, Spo wants to win, the front office wants to win, and that's the case. Then you always go out and get the superstars. So I think there are still people, as you said, that are kind of wondering why the Miami Heat would pursue Giannis Antetokounmpo in the first place. I don't know. Like, I know we broke down how the fit would be with Bam and Adebayo, and we still got feedback from our listeners and viewers that the pairing wouldn't work. And as far as I'm concerned, that should always be your goal, is to get that superstar player. Like, you have a player like Giannis. We're talking about a generational player, like a top 75 guy, one of the best players in NBA history.
A top three guy right now. A top three guy right now.
Still damn good. Like, we went through this with KD, and over the summer, people saying, "No, I don't want 37-year-old KD." He's like, why the hell not? He's still a damn good player. Like, he's carrying a Houston team that's beset by injuries, and yeah, they're not winning at the same level they want because of a lot of different factors, but it's not because of him. He's doing everything possible.
He's dragging that offense. Asking me Udoka, he's like, we're way over reliant on this 37-year-old, right? That was the quote. No, it's your point, right? Like, this is the hardest thing to do. Get that guy. And and there's not a lot of ways to get him, right? There used to be 3 ways to get these guys: draft, trade, free agency. And as we've talked about, and a lot of people have talked about, free agency, that option is starting to dissolve. That's not necessarily the option it once was. So now it's trade or draft. And we know that the Heat aren't going to draft this player, probably, right? Because as good as Kel'el is, and Jaime is, and Pella is, and Yakachonis looks, and all this stuff, none of these guys are going to be Giannis. And to win a championship, you need a Giannis, you need a LeBron, you need a D Wade, you need that guy. You have an opportunity to go get that guy. If it costs you a bunch of the young pieces and draft picks and all that stuff, so be it. You got to go get that player because it opens up the championship window. And the way that the window is closed right now,
Right.
this is the hardest thing to do. You go get that guy, you figure the rest out. And by the way, if you get that guy and you already have your number 2 best option and maybe even your number 3 option, if you're able to hang on to a Powell or a Herro or a Wiggins or something like that in this, you've done most of the work, right?
Think about what the team just went to the finals. Like, your star was Jimmy Butler. On no level was Jimmy Butler a better player than Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, playoff Jimmy notwithstanding, like, Giannis is still better. And if you can add Giannis to this team, yeah, you know what? Then you can do what Miami has done so consistently. You can get those G League guys and add them to the roster, and they're going to find a way to thrive. And
that's
right
why you
now,
have the developmental program that you've developed over the last few years, right? Is now we can go. It does hurt to lose a Jaime or a Kel'el or things like that, but we can find the next versions of that much easier than we can find the next Giannis, because we've been trying to find the next Giannis and we haven't for 10 years. We haven't done it. And so I think you got to go get that guy. I will point out, though, Jimmy was better than Giannis in that 2023 first round. We'll say that. But that's not important because it's not 2023 anymore. It's 2026. And right now, Giannis is that guy. And you can go get that guy. And to your point, David, in the sense that you've never had that guy regular season and playoffs combined, I would be very interested to see what this team can do. Am I getting my hopes up? I don't know. Probably. Maybe. I don't know how to feel about it.
I'm prepared to be disappointed, Wes. I'm prepared.
So am I. What's new? Thanks for tuning in today to Locked On Heat. We'll be back tomorrow with our post-game reaction to tonight's game against the Atlanta Hawks, plus all of the maybe sights and sounds from the 2006 championship celebration. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Heat so you get all of the latest episodes.